Hey, Jeff, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Brian. So, my name is Jeff Piszczek, and first off, honored to be a part of the podcast. I'm a big fan. I had been nominated a few times from colleagues in the past on LinkedIn when you requested, some interviews with sales folks, and that's when I started checking out. I finally gave in, and that's really when I started looking at your LinkedIn content and then your podcast and some of your YouTube videos. And again, I love it. It's great for anybody in B2B sales. So there's so much truth in that hilarious content you provide. But I've been in enterprise sales for 21 years. Actually started my career with IBM Global Services in the late 90s, to date myself there. Actually implementing in the services side, which gave me up for a couple of years. I wasn't that good at it, but it gave me a really good perspective, starting off on that side and really working with folks. And we were doing at the time e-commerce sites and kind of the infancy of that with large retailers. And it taught me a lot. I think it was really good training for my career the next 20 or so years, because I was really young, 22, 23, 24 years old. And I'm in the room with executives really learning how to position value. And I don't think I would have, definitely know I wouldn't have gotten in the room any other way, right? I think they were expecting the technology and what we were talking about to come from younger folks at the time. And it was great. It was a really good, lessons those years to learn. And then I, transitioned over into the enterprise sales role about 20, for the last 20 years after that.
And I did the same thing, but more on, I was the pizza, long-haired, ride the bike to school developer.
Oh, really? Okay.
And the only one willing to go out with the salespeople on site.
Right.
And then I always thought I was the highest paid person in the company because I was so productive and useful. And
right.
And I find out their base salary was more than what I was making.
Oh, I thought they loved me. I'm like, these guys are taking me to Morton's for lunch,
Yeah.
I'm like, these guys love me, right? And I'm like, I am so important. This is so great. And, then I get to realize later in life, you start to look back and you realize and not that they were using me, but they were utilizing me and leveraging me because my unsullied, some would say naive perspective was pure the value and the enthusiasm for the projects that we were delivering, right? And so good for them doing that, but I was the same situation. I thought I was, this is the life. This is great,
How was that transition to go from, plus you went from being highly valued to only being valued for what you produce?
Absolutely. So it was a difficult transition. And one of the things I realized was, I was used to people calling me back or getting back.
I know, they're so rude.
Right. Because I was on that, value, I was delivering and I was working on that side of it. And so learning about all of the things that took me to get into that room, which again, I was naive to. I was just like, oh, you call somebody, you set up a meeting, it's good to go and you speak. Those were the things that you really had to figure out. How will I provide value? How will I get somebody to want to work with me from a sales perspective? And again, it comes to that part of it, of more of a really understanding what they want to do and learning and appreciating, and one thing that's never left is that curiosity and that passion to learn. I've been lucky enough to work across all kinds of industries in my career, and I just enjoy learning about it, right? And so I think that helps. But that was the biggest thing of going from someone on this side of it that never really had to schedule meetings and always had people get back to them to, okay, now I've got to figure out how I can create these things and make it so.
And how about the other part of sales, the, getting the decision through the organization as in conjunction with the paper, having it not start over, or be marginalized?
Yeah, that's a huge part of of what you learn and in walking through it. And I think and of course there's I think there's two sides of it, right? I always say to be successful in this, there's the kind of the below the line, which is more that's the process,
User, yeah.
the framework, the tactics, and those things that you use, the artifacts, which is kind of table stakes, and you need to do that. But then it's the above the line selling, which is more of the performance, the deal creativity, the problem solving, the mindset. And I like to really look at it from taking an empathetic approach, because you really want to solve their problem, which is to say, understanding where they're coming from. So when I found when you're a strategic partner, which is what I do with organizations, those processes are still there, and you want to map them out and understand them. But when you're working together, it's not just you calling them asking where it is in the process flow, right? This is more of
That's not valuable.
that's not value add. You're working together. Yes, you want to map out and understand it. We use MedPick and other different things to understand that. But really, when you've proven yourself as someone who's going to be, going to help them derive value, and you're going to work together, and people will see that passion, and they want to work with people that will be able to, they can achieve their initiatives, right? Not just you, but your team. And you've shown that you can go the extra mile. I think that helps out with all of those other things downstream, because you're working it together. It didn't just become, I'm trying to do this, it's we're trying to do this, right? And that has been a big lesson for me in my career, is not only demonstrate value, but demonstrate empathy and understand the challenges and work together, because I'm looking for long-term strategic relationships and partnerships, not doing a deal and walking away, right?
Well, let's talk about that, because I think everyone says strategic partnership,
Yeah.
but what does it mean in your world?
Sure. So, we talk about, for example, like champions. Do you have a champion? That's all great, but are you championing them within your organization? Are you putting, yourself on the line to say this for this partner, right? Are you going to bat for them? There's, ensuring that you're really working with them and doing it on the timelines that make sense for them, not your quarterly timelines, right? And by the way, selecting the right projects and understanding where you're the most value add. You've got to have an honest discussion. We all have differentiators in our platforms and so forth, but we're not good for everything. So where do you best fit to achieve these objectives, right? So it's really treating them as not being short-sighted, being more strategic. And it's those areas where I think you can, honest conversations, people respect that, right? And those are some of the areas where you can really show that value, and then putting together, here's how we're going to actually achieve this ROI. Here's how we're going to work together. What's important to you? What's important to your organization? Those things come across when every meeting and interaction you have, you're bringing something to the table. You're not just asking for things, right? And a partnership forms. And then based on your success, it becomes more and more strategic as you prove yourself within that organization, right? A lot of times when we start off, we got a flashlight in the dark, right? We don't win these large organizations, right?
At best,
at
maybe
best,
a match.
Right, maybe a match in a dark room, and trying to understand and figure out. But the more conversations you have, the more connections, the more areas where you can say, yes, this makes sense for us. No, this doesn't. They'll respect that. That's where you connect the dots and you start working together, and then earning your way to other areas as you traverse the business and you work to provide value. I've always looked at it as investigatory detective type work, yeah. Right? One of my mentors had a great saying. He says, when your mother says she loves you, get a second source. Right?
Second opinion.
which is to say, always be multi-thread, always get other folks' perspectives and put together, understanding all of those, because you're going to learn every time and hopefully provide some vision. And so I think that's a big part of it as well. I think people underestimate the amount of detective work that you need to do to be successful in this job, and putting things together. And it's not just reading annual reports. It's having real conversations and really understanding what's important to folks in different lines of business and throughout, the IT organization.
And how did you become good or comfortable talking with such a broad number of people in different roles?
Yep. It's just time, right? The more that you have confidence with the platform or with what you're selling, the more that you understand where it's the most effective, the specific areas, and the more you've seen it before, it becomes more natural and easier. And the more that you get folks to open up and really, have that true curiosity and that true, I really want to understand, it just becomes easier. It's not some pressured sale tactic or something. It's more of, let's see if we can work together. I respect your time, you respect mine. And you just, if you have that curiosity and you do your homework before you show up, those things come more naturally. And you're confident because it's okay that you don't know everything. You're never going to know everything about their business that they know. But if you can learn about the areas you can help them and come prepared, the people are more, forthcoming with information, I've found. And then just the more that you do it, and I've been fortunate enough to work for, organizations and selling, platforms or applications of service that cross all kinds of industries. And so you get, you just learn about them over time as well. So that helps the experience. But the curiosity, the genuine interest, I think is critical.
And was that something you always had, the curiosity?
Yeah, it was. It's interesting to me how companies do things, right? Like the real way of, really understanding how do they bring products to market? What is really the way that they're generating revenue here? What is there, especially in today's world, right? Where so many companies are innovating and so many companies are transforming. It's fascinating to me. And what's great too, is you connect with people. I always say, when you find someone that has that fire on their side,
Yeah.
and you hitch your wagons together, and you can do some really interesting things. I will take that passion and that interest above a title, above anything, because that's really where I think where you can kind of hitch your wagons together and make things happen within an organization. Because what we're doing is we're driving change. Some of it is very disruptive of how they're doing things before. So you need to be able to to do that with somebody. But I've always had that curiosity, for sure. It's just interesting to me, right? How business works and how companies do things and their history and where they're going and so forth.
And how can you tell when a prospect's worth spending that time? What's the difference in your mind between like an A and a B?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, because it's not just how they look on paper, obviously, because it's some are great and it's okay to say now is not the time, right? You don't want to run all these enterprise sales plays when you're not there yet. It's gotta line up. And so to me, it's first of all, it's activity and interaction. And when they're really giving you the information to help you succeed, and they're not being cagey about it or things like that. It's more of, hey, we've got this. And again, it over time, you've got to get in there and discover and understand and have those, again, like I said, turn some lights on in some rooms. So if you have that access and you're learning more and it makes sense going together, you can start to just kind of feel that this is a real initiative. It's a funded initiative. You understand how it was, how it started, what it's tied to in terms of revenues and hard numbers. And then it's the momentum of which this is going. And it doesn't, again, it's not on your time frame, it's on theirs. But if you're continually on the flip side, you can be presenting the best arguments or putting the best business cases together. You can have your whiz-bang ROI calculator. If it doesn't matter if they're not providing the feedback and it's not yours together, right? That's the difference, is really the interaction and them owning it and then moving it forward with you in that partnership. So, and then of course there's different things that you look at in terms of, does this make sense from an organization standpoint, and they're spending those things, but it's really comes down to the people interaction of it and their true desire. It's got to be a two-way street.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've been exposed to a lot of different types of salespeople in your career.
Yes.
What separates the very best from the okay?
So I think it's a couple of things, and it's, first of all, there's, there's a drive, then there's like a grit to it, and that's kind of a component that you've got to get up and you've got to, as some people say, pack your own lunch, right? You've got to be able to make things happen and go out there. You can't, the people that start saying, oh, none of these MQLs are coming in. And
these leads suck.
these leads are, where's the Glengarry reads, whatever. It's like, like that's kind of, you've got to do it. You've got to have the mentality that that's all icing on the cake. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it myself. The other piece I think that's important is really, process is important, and having a framework, and those things matter in terms of having the right assets and artifacts that you need to help progress through the sales cycle. So doing those parts again are important, but again, the most important to me is that problem solving mindset of we're going to figure this out together. I understand where you're coming from. I have empathy. But that's why, EI is much more of a predictor of success than IQ or EQ. I'm sorry, is so much more of a predictor. It's that management, that problem solving, those areas I find folks are really, really good. And it's funny because sometimes when they get into sales, they stop doing those things for some reason, and they try to become very like the process takes over. And it's like, think about it like any other relationship that you have. Think about it from an empathetic point of view. Think about it from a relationship point of view, right? You should be seeing these signs and that's where you can kind of open it up a bit and problem solve and do those things. And so those are the folks that I see that are much more people that have, EQ and apply those things. They're the most successful in this type of complex B2B software sales, right?
Yeah, because that EQ and that, when I heard the word together, and I always characterize that champion, the person with the fire, as partner in crime.
Yeah, that's good. Mm-hmm.
Because you're not committing a crime. You're trying to accomplish something that is hard to do
right
together.
Mm-hmm.
And if you act like a salesperson, you get treated like one.
Yep.
We'll let you know if we have any questions.
Right. Right. And
not exactly the open dialogue you want.
Right. I've heard people say like, "Oh, I really presented what I wanted to." I'm like, "Oh, well, that's great that you did.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. You did that presentation. That you can mark that down. Check that activity." But there's no questions. There's no follow-up. So what do you think you've achieved there besides checking a box with your activity metrics,
And you must get that feel when the deal is going to progress.
There's definitely a feeling, you're, texting with with the team, you're working together, like you're providing each other, updates, you're getting your resources ready to go. It's all those, and there will be bumps and there will be challenges, but that's okay because there's no reason to panic. You will figure this out. Because you both teams, inevitably, you and your partner in crime or partners in crime, want to get to the fun, interesting stuff, which is actually delivering these things for the
outcomes
or whatever. Yeah. Get it to the outcomes that you've laid out. The other stuff is there, but you know what? It's sometimes some of the hardest with some of these larger, G2K or Fortune 500s, those harder negotiations or getting started. I call it getting kind of the plane off the ground. That really, you've been in the, together in the fire, right? You've been together in the trenches. And that pays dividends, and that's even better when you get going, right? Because I like to start with a really good land where you can then go from there and you can start, doing the things that you need to do and from adoption lists and so forth. And those experiences, when you've gone battled in the trenches together, you and your partners in crime, that and your team from your side, that's great. That's a great way to start off a partnership. That's going to be, over the course of several years and continue on. When I'm gone or I've passed it on to someone who's going to manage that more tightly. And so those are the signs that you get. It's like any sign, Brian, as you know, like you just know if you've got a two-way street with a relationship, right? Like, if it's a really beneficial relationship, or if you're just the one that can
all the work.
Doing all the work. I don't know why people don't apply more common sense to.
Well, I think people put the company face on.
Yeah.
This is my job. This is their job. Their job's to buy. My job's to sell.
Right.
But no one's job is to buy.
No one's job is to buy. You're exactly right.
And we hold, we use our sales voice. Hey, it's Brian. How's it going today?
Right.
Which turns everybody off. We follow what marketing and our manager tells us: present, demo, propose, negotiate, close. But no deal has ever worked that way in history.
Never.
And we don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to hear the answers that we don't want to hear.
Right.
Oh, we got a new boss. He doesn't like anything. That's not a no. That's an obstacle.
Yep.
And we don't want to do anything unless we get a reward.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a long time between doing work and getting a reward.
Right.
So we
Yep.
have
You're absolutely right. And it's, it's not about the activity. Those things, deal never works that way, right? That's just kind of a framework. This is a partnership. And I always say that you're in the trust business. I mean, it's cliche, but it's true. When you're really in it to help an organization, when you're really in it for help them achieve and deliver on their initiatives. Because again, I mean, listen, it's not this is all altruistic. The end game when they are successful because it makes everything so much easier. The renewals, the upgrades, all of those things are there if you can deliver. And they look at you more, if I would argue more than the platform, right? Everyone's got their differentiation for
absolutely.
their products, and they look at you and your team and they say, are these people going to go to bat for me? Are these people going to work the extra time and over the weekend with some weekend to get this thing done when we've got to go live? Are these people ones that I can trust and I can bring forward in front of our leadership, right? Everybody understands technology. People that work in technology know there are going to be challenges and issues. That's just what it is. But how do you handle those things? And is this someone who's going to just close this deal and turn away and go do something else? Or are they going to be there with me for the long term here and help me achieve on that? That is such a factor. I believe in people making decisions on who they go with, above and beyond a lot of times these feature functions, right?
And what motivated the people to recommend you for the show?
Well, I
What
know.
did you do to them?
Well, I know a couple of folks said, they thought we'd have a really good conversation because I do, in our QBRs or meetings, and they'll have me present at different things and boot camps and these type of things that we have for on sales. I really do enjoy in understanding kind of I'm a sales, the mindset and what in all of these kinds of discussions, and they just thought we would have a good discussion because they know the honest things that you say I will bring up, not as funny, not as funny as you do it, but
well,
I
that's
will.
a big bar to hurdle.
That is a big bar. I will get down to the facts though. The point of like this stuff is all good, but guys, here's how really these things happen and how they get done.
Yeah.
And try to give my own brand of honesty, right? My own brand of it internally when we have these discussions. Like for example, the champion discussion. Like teach us how. Give us a session on champions. That's fine, but I think it's more important to understand the first question you need to be asking yourself is why would this person put their behind on the line for you? If you can't answer that question, where do you get off trying to test them on where they're going to take you, right?
Right.
And are you going to champion them internally, like I mentioned before? Like, so these are the kind of thing, the ways that I look at it from a different approach. A lot of times you'll see everything is from the company's perspective or this. It's like, guys, flip that around and think about it from their perspective, even if you just want to do it from more of a cognitive empathy approach, but still understand that, right? And because it's going to get you a lot further. So I think some of those reasons that I'm pretty, I'm not afraid to talk about those things. So like you guys we'd have a really good discussion. So I definitely appreciate it.
Well, it's really hard to have cognitive empathy because you got a number over your head, you got pressure on you, you're most people are over their head in technology and business issues and acumen. And then to take time aside and say, well, how are they thinking? How do they view this? What does this mean to them?
Right. You're absolutely right. But what I always have done, this isn't a transaction type business, right? This is longer term. So yes, people can say, Jeff, it's easier for you to do it. You've hit your number, every quarter and blah, 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 probably a dozen President's Clubs, all of these things. But I started somewhere too, right? And I've looked at the longer game of how we're going to do this, and it does pay off. It just makes everything much easier and more straightforward. So you're right. I totally can appreciate and listen, I've started at 4 companies, I've worked for 4 companies. So I've started that sales journey at 4 companies over 21 years. So I get it. I know what it's like to start off and you got to figure it out. You've got that number over your head, but I really believe in what we do that pays off, in spades down the line, 100% to take the time to do that. You don't have to do it with everybody that's why time organization is so important. And where the number one thing you've got going against you is the amount of time, because it's you don't
You
have
can't
that.
change it.
You
Yeah.
can't
You
change
can't
it.
buy
That is
another
the
month.
I wish I could, if I can buy another day sometimes. So that's a big part of it as well, Brian, because you make a great point. All of this sounds great, but you've got to also be able to qualify quickly and be okay to say, this is not the right time to go down the motion with these folks. I see too many people going down the path and taking a long time to come in second, third, or the dreaded no decision, right? So it's like that time that was wasted there on 5 of these things that never really panned out, you could have spent on a couple, and you've really gotten in there and understanding it after you've qualified them out. So that's where the time part of it is so important, because we've pulled in so many different directions, and you've got to manage that to your to the best that you can, right? It's a limited resource, unfortunately.
And when these reps come to you for advice, what's the typical topic that seems to be either the solution or the problem?
Sure. It depends kind of where they are. So if they're starting out, right, we have this mentorship program that we do. It's about, more usually about, just figuring things out at first, right? But it's about, a lot of times it's pipeline generation, right? Where do we go? Where are some good places to kind of
Start.
to start? And so I think that's part of it. And, again, you've got to be able to, I don't believe in this, spray and pray methodology. It's about
Is a big
understanding.
product.
It's not a number thing, right? It's very specific, and it's your network, right? Getting in from other folks that you've, again, done right by. That's why it's so important to be referred in, or understanding their challenges and being much more specific. And so, it's more qualified, good organizations to go after that you truly believe that you can help, right? I always say that if I'm doing my job well, and because I believe that we're going to help this organization, we can help them in multiple ways of what they're doing. It should be such a place that we provide to the information and so much backup that it's almost negligent for them not to take a real look at it, right? Because it's just I call it an arguable argument. It's right there in front of them. We've done everything, and we know that we're a good fit. So let's see if we're going to go and take this evaluation, this partnership together. So I call it an evaluation partnership plan. If not, that's fine. Let's move over here. So I think those are some common things of getting started. And then it's, how do you grow accounts, right? When you get in, and it's some of this exact same things that we're talking about: landing correctly, being able to earn your way across the business to different units. You've got to really do your work. It doesn't matter what you put in a piece of paper, right? Did you deliver? Did you deliver the goods? Because if you did, then you'll earn your way to the next place and the next place in that organization, right? And so I talk about the ability to really have to be not only the sales process, but being the quarterback of that account as you're taking them live and they're deriving value. I'm not leaving until all of that is done, for multiple years sometimes, right? And that part I think people don't think about as much. Some don't. They want to sell and walk on. That's not how I do things. And I don't think it's the true way to succeed these days in what we do. You've got to be able to, I'm not talking about just being we have another group for that for longer term. But when we have it for a year or so, or a couple of years, you've really got to make sure that those customers are successful and do whatever it takes internally and externally, and for your partner network to do so. That's super important. But I don't think a lot of people think about that come into this, right?
And do you find many reps don't understand that the complex sale is both complex and it's much more of a cerebral game than it is a charm and personality game?
Yeah, I mean, so I always try to explain it like, just think of it as this is chess, right? This is strategic. This isn't, this is not
checkers,
right? And it's not reactionary. It's not short-term.
Boom.
And that's what you have to really understand. And it's from opportunity to opportunity. You've got to see it in a bigger picture, and you can't just run and do this and do this and
wait till they yell at you.
And yeah, because they don't want to say no, right? In what relationship? That's not a relationship. right? If the one party is just running around doing
All the work and the
what
other
the other
person.
wants, doing all the work, think about that for a second and like put yourself in like a regular, like a relationship, right? With like a partner. Is that any kind of a healthy relationship? Do you think that they would respect that? So, that's it. Thinking about it and thinking about it more strategically and thinking about it as chess, not checkers. And then really what getting like that goes back to what I was talking about before about having the detective work and discovery, right? Everybody's got different goals and objectives. A lot of them will go up to specific things, but understanding where does this person want to go personally with their career, right? Where do they want to go? What's the next move for them? How impactful is this to the next thing that this company is doing on that level to their boss? So understanding all of those things will make you a much better partner, and it's not running around trying to do jumping
Do more dumb things faster.
yeah, doing more dumb things to build up some activity metrics, right?
Cool. Hey, this has been a fantastic conversation. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
Yeah, no, you can just find me on LinkedIn. Jeffrey Peacecheck. You can see the name there, and yeah, I'm looking forward to again. I really appreciate it, Brian. It's great conversation. I'll be continuing to follow you and laughing and reusing some of your content because it's great.